my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera, and today I'm going to be reviewing a book called The Romanovs, The Final Chapter. It was written by Robert K. Massie and published in 1995, and it's around 300 pages long. Before I begin, though, I would like to say that since this book deals with historical facts, I won't really be mentioning any spoilers. Still, if you're not really familiarized with what happened to Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, or to his family, and do not wish to find out, then beware. I've always loved history and monarchies, and Nicholas II and his family are some of my favorite historical figures ever. Why? Because I just love their lives, their personalities, their stories, their connection to Queen Victoria, the fact that they were the last rulers of the Imperial Russia, this time of ghost-like, wraith-like beauty that seems now haunting and frail and bittersweet. So over the years, ever since I was a teenager, I've watched as many movies and documentaries and read as many books as I can about them and biographies, and that's how I came to learn about the Romanovs, the Final Chapter. One day I saw it at a bookstore and I picked it up, and I already knew I was going to buy it because not only of its subject, but because it was its author, Robert K. Massie, had also written Nicholas and Alexandra, my favorite book ever about the Romanovs, book that inspired the fantastic 70s movie Nicholas and Alexandra. So I know that K. Massie really knows his Romanov history. Plus, his son has hemophilia, so there's this special connection between him and Nicholas and Alexandra and the Tsarevich Alexei, so I really like his writing. So yeah, I bought this book back in January 2020, and by August I was reading it. I read it after spending like a week and a half devouring other books about the Romanovs, and I finished it in just 2 days. Also, as I read it, they mentioned a lot of documentaries that were filmed about the remains of Nicholas II and his family, and I think I might have seen at least one of them before, because some of the things the book mentions were familiar to me. But yeah, I searched all of these documentaries so that I can pinpoint which one was the one that dealt with the issues I was reading about, and I found it here on YouTube. It's by National Geographic, and it's called The Romanovs, The Missing Bodies. This book is divided into different sections. The first one deals with what happened to the remains of the Romanov family after they were massacred on the early hours of the morning of July 17, 1918. So we follow in detail what their murderers did to their bodies, to all the different attempts over the decades to find their burial ground, to their eventful discovery, and all the DNA tests and other scientific procedures their bones had to go through in order to prove that they were in fact the remains of Nicholas II, his family, and their most loyal servants that died with them. Finally, it covers all that took place after their remains were identified until they are properly buried more than 80 decades after their murders. The book also covers the stories of the most prominent imposters who claimed to be one of the Tsar's children, pretending they had escaped and had been in hiding for fear of their lives. The pretenders usually said they were Anastasia or Alexei as adults because they were the youngest children, and so no one would have had seen them as adults and thus able to call out their lies. The most famous of these pretenders was Anna Anderson, the woman whose life inspired the film/musical of Anastasia. So we follow her life and even what happens to her remains after she dies as people try to solve whether or not she was indeed the daughter of Nicholas II, and of course she wasn't. Another part deals with what the current Romanov family is doing, from giving a picture of what their ancestors had to do to survive after escaping the revolution, to the most prominent members who claim to have the best positions to be the true heirs to the Russian throne. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars review because I really enjoyed it and really recommend it. It's beautifully researched, and I'm a journalist, so I was in awe of the author's level of commitment to really present a well-researched story. I had slight problems with it. For example, it's from 1995, so it's a bit outdated. Still, up to the middle 90s, it gives a clear, accurate idea of everything related to the Romanovs. But of course, it doesn't cover the discovery of the remains of Maria and Alexei back in 2007. But yeah, regarding the book, I loved the first part, the one about how the Romanov remains were found. I was constantly reminded of how back in 2012, people found the remains of Richard III, one of my favorite kings of England ever, in a parking lot. But back in the 90s, there wasn't as much chimp-proof technology as they did back with Richard III, so it was fascinating to see all the process that they did to prove that this were indeed the Romanov remains. The only part of the book, though, that made me really sort of stray because it got really heavy was the description of all the DNA tests and all the court proceedings. But other than that, I learned so much about the Romanovs, who are the current Romanovs now, to all the stories of the pretenders who have called themselves Anastasia or Alexei. For the moment, though, I think that this is all I have to say about the Romanovs, the final chapter. Thank you so much for watching my review of it. Please let me know if you enjoyed it or not. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that you did. But I would also love to hear your own thoughts regarding this book, as well as anything that's relevant about the Romanovs. And, well, in the description box below, you can find a link to the Goodreads page for the book. Anyways, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you're in the world. I'll be seeing you soon. Take care, and goodbye!